Hello and howdy, everybody. A couple days ago, I watched, for pretty much the second time ever, Wet, Hot American Summer. And usually I like to have some type of visual reference here, but I actually, my cable package has got a free movie weekend like last month. So I went through and tried to record some of the movies I wanted to watch, one of them being Wet Hot American Summer. So I finally got around to watching it this week after recording it like a month ago. So, you know, I'm sorry I have nothing visual to show you, but I believe it was on the movie channel and recorded it. The quality was really good. I don't really know the difference between like that 180 whatever they call it on HD and, you know, Blu-ray quality. The difference is probably negligible, especially with a film Wet Hot American Summer. I have seen the film like here and there, but I have seen it start to finish twice, and this being the second time. I watched it originally when it first came out on cassette. I didn't see this in theater. I had to be told about it. I had to be, you know, basically sat down by my roommate at the time and made to watch it. You know, you're going to like this, Luke, watch it. I did like it. I had seen it several times, like little bits and pieces here and there, but now I have finally seen it for the second time from start to finish. And I really enjoyed it. Wet Hot American Summer is from 2001. It is a beloved cult classic. I would put it maybe not as much as The Big Lebowski, but it's certainly up there in terms of, you know, what am I trying to say? Again, cult status. It's got again, it's a beloved film with a devout cult following. As far as I know, this is the first feature film from David Wayne. David Wayne, again, in general, this is, I mean, not necessarily, but you can call this like the state movie. A lot of the people, but not all of the people who are responsible for the state are in this film. You know, I always kind of think like Reno 911 and like the guys from Stella at one time, you know, worked together, and then something may have happened, must have happened for them to separate, because none of the Reno 911 guys are in this film. But, you know, all of the Stella guys are in it, all the guys who would go on to be in Children's Hospital, not all of them, but some of them are in it. So again, if in a nutshell, you can kind of call it the state movie, but not really. As far as I know, it's David Wayne's first film. He's gone on to do several other films, including The Great Role Models and Wanderlust. What else has he done? He's done some other stuff. He had, you know, I was always disappointed. I think it only got one season or maybe like 2 small seasons of Stella on Comedy Central. I thought that was a genius show, and I guess too good for TV. So he did that, and he still directs a lot of Children's Hospital. He's just very talented. As far as I know, this is his first feature-length film. It was written by David Wayne and one of his Stella buddies, Michael Showalter. It's funny. You know, I laughed heartily throughout. It's very animated, meaning that it has a cartoon sensibility in terms of reality. I mean, several kids die during this film, but and usually small children dying is not like very thought of as comedic, but here it's you know, comedy. It's uncomfortable and it's comedy. So it has, again, that rubber band reality that may irritate some, but definitely gives the film, it just permeates it with a sense of manic glee. that is there from start to finish. Okay, Wet Hot American Summer is about, it takes place all in one day, the last day of summer camp. And I think we're in 1981, 84, somewhere in the early 80s. Somewhere in the early 80s. Everyone is supposed to be young, you know. And they never really play that up for laughs. But again, we're watching like people in their 30s play, you know, people in their late teens. So that's kind of funny. But anyway, we've got last day of summer camp. You've got the teenage counselors. You've got the young campers. And again, it's the last day. It's blowout. And apparently, just to be at this camp anyway is somewhat dangerous. But on the last day, when no one cares and everyone's just wanting to party, it's especially dangerous. You've got just a mega cast in this. If there's I guess I haven't said anything. I'm going to give the film an 8. You know, I think it's definitely a solid 8. At times I thought, especially towards, like, in the third act, I was like, well, maybe this is a 7. But it's too funny and too bizarre. And just, this love just comes out of the screen. All this love comes out of the screen, and I can't ignore that. So I have to give it an 8. It's a solid 8 for me. Very funny, very funny. What? I'm running out of battery. Okay, I'll make this quick. You've got just a mega cast. David Wayne's never in it. Okay, you've got Ken Marino, you've got Paul Rudd, you've got that detective from Law & Order SVU. He's hilarious here. You've got Elizabeth Banks, Janine Garofalo, David Hyde Pierce. Oh, I'm leaving out so many people. But they're all just great and funny. And so many familiar faces. And this film, you know, was ahead of its time. It's ahead of the curve. You know, it was meta. It had pop culture references. I mean, again, maybe not ahead of the curve by today's standards, you know, by today's standards. But still, I felt like many comedies just outright almost copy the feeling of this film. And that's what they can't match is I just get this impression that while they were making this film, they were just having an amazing time. And that love and that fun, you know, comes out of the screen and affects the viewer. There's just no other way about it. Michael Ian Black is also in it. Chris Cooper is also in it. The writing, again, is just so bizarre that it just... Again, they just kill kids in the film whenever they need to. And they don't worry about anything. So it's just... It's funny. It's definitely indulgent. You know... maybe sometimes they play the joke a little bit too long. I don't know how else to say it. But, you know, it's just self-indulgent, which is fine to a point. There is some moments in the third act where I was just like, okay, come on, let's get going. The cast is so expansive that there are, you know, little character adventures for everyone to do, but sometimes you just forget them and say, oh yeah, this story. Like, oh, I forgot about these guys. Mainly focusing on Ken Marino, trying to get his canoe trip there and back. You know, that's pretty much all they do is try to get the canoe kids there and back, whatever, just so we can have some sex. And it's just, again, I forgot about them. You know, it's like, oh yeah, these guys. So again, there's lots of... Molly Shannon's also in it. Molly Shannon also has that kind of thing where her character has this one specific, you know, adventure, and the film just keeps on going back to that when it needs to, and it's like, oh yeah, this story. Like, it has a lot of ground to cover. So at times, you know, it feels like it's trying to pull everything together at one time, just because I mean, God, it's almost epic. You know, it's almost epic in terms of the adventures that go on. But still, even though it tries to pull everything together and maybe doesn't do it perfectly, it still does it with a sense of glee that is why you watch the film. It's also absolutely hilarious, you know, throughout. You know, a lot of comedies kind of lose sight with the story they're trying to tell, and the third act is significantly less funny than the first two acts. Not so the case here. You know, the third act is just as funny, I'd say. It's just a funny movie. It has an uncompromising ending. You know, that's definitely not Hollywood. It's just like this independent feature that was released, not, you know, didn't make any money, not really seen. I don't think the critics really, you know, like went gaga for it, but yet, you know, it's now, I guess, 11 years later. They had a 10th anniversary last year, and again, it's beloved. Probably one of the most beloved recent cult films. I'd put it just second to The Big Lebowski, if anything, which is great company. I can't think of anything else to say. If you're a fan of comedies, if you're a fan of Adult Swim, that Adult Swim mentality, you'll definitely see that here. There wasn't much in existence before that sounds like this film, that feels like this film. Certainly only like The Simpsons and Space Ghost Coast to Coast and The Family Guy. Again, cartoons were like the only thing that really could predate this. At least it really felt that way to me, and possibly, you know, maybe the Larry Sanders Show. And of course, The State itself, which again, this is kind of, you know, the State movie, in a way, but not really. So there you go. I don't know what else to say other than I've really enjoyed watching it a second time, and I will really enjoy watching it the third time, whenever that should happen. So there you go. That's Wet Hot American Summer, and I give it a solid 8. Thank you very much.